Brennan and Jarowski are so gung-ho about the free market system. You remember Sam I Am and how gung-ho he was about green eggs and ham? Well, Brennan and Jarowski are just as gung-ho about the idea of markets. They're like, you can have a market here, or there, you can have a market anywhere. This is very evident in the second chapter of their book, the one titled, If You May Do It for Free, You May Do It for Money. You may have read it. For them, if you can perform an act of service or charity for free, then you can also do it for money. Anything that you can normally have or possess, you can also exchange it for money. They are saying that there are no inherent limits to a market system. People can get caught up with this bold claim and miss the argument that is really being made here, so they wrote this chapter. It's similar to the distinction that the teacher makes in elementary school if you've ever asked, "Can I use the bathroom?" The teacher usually responds, "I don't know, can you?" thinking they're really smart. And then you're supposed to reply, "May I use the bathroom?" When Brennan Jarowski say, if you may do it for free, you may do it for money, they are speaking about the buying and selling itself. To make it more clear what is meant, let's look at the three definitions for market limits that Brennan Jarowski give us. To remember all three limits, just think of the word we. No, you don't mean. Oh yes, I mean the Nintendo Wii. W stands for wrongful possession limits. The first I stands for incidental limits, and the second I stands for inherent limits. Let's start with wrongful possession. There are some goods or services that should not be had or done at all. Two examples Brennan Jarowski give us are child pornography and nukes. It is not due to the virtue of a free market system that these goods should not be sold. These goods should just not exist in general. Returning to our idea of may or can, when you ask your teacher to use the bathroom, you are not wondering, is it physically possible for me to excrete my human waste into a bowl of water? No, you're asking permission. The teacher's comment is there to distinguish between the two ideas. Brennan and Jarowski are making the distinction that nukes and child pornography are not terrible things by virtue of them being sold. These things are terrible because they exist. Buying or selling these things does not introduce wrongness into an otherwise permissible good or service. Therefore, it is a limit, but not one on markets. Moving on, the first I stands for incidental limits. Under unique circumstances, things that normally would be completely permissible to buy or sell should not be sold. To illustrate this idea, Brennan Jarowski gives us the example of a baseball bat. Is it okay for you to sell a baseball bat and for someone else to buy it? Sure it is. What if someone told you, however, that they wanted to buy that bat to go beat up their dirty, rotten, cheating boyfriend? Would it be okay to sell it to them? To be honest, the guy probably deserves it, but the correct answer is no. Just like with our wrongful possession, it is not selling or buying that makes this problematic. In this case, it is the circumstances that have introduced a limit. That's why it is called an incidental limit. Now, these two kinds of limits we have mentioned, wrongful possession and incidental, are limits, but Brennan and Jarowski do not see them as limits of the market itself. The third, however, would be. An inherent limit of the market would be something that people are normally allowed to own or possess in some way, but which should not be for sale. This is the definition Brennan Jarowski would use to describe the idea of markets having limits. And the fact is, they don't believe that this exists. We have a definition for the idea, but for Brennan Jarowski, there is no such thing as an inherent limit. And that's the whole point of what they are trying to say. If you may do it for free, you may do it for money. That's it.